Good afternoon, everyone. So how fortunate am I to get to address you from this new position of mindfulness and sustenance that we've experienced over the last hour? My name is Joe Reed. I'm the Director of Marketing and Communications here at Phipps, and I'll be your moderator for the session on spirituality and equity. Our first speaker is Dr. Will Adams. He's an Associate Professor of Psychology at Duquesne University and a psychotherapist, ecopsychologist, and meditation teacher in private practice. Welcome, Dr. Adams.
Thanks so much. It's wonderful being here with kindred allies. I feel like this is exactly what we need to be doing. So a great big thanks to Phipps for bringing folks together. We have a glorious world and a world that's also wounded and wounding. And it feels like to me that Earth is calling for a kind of therapy from us. An interdisciplinary therapy that includes experts, biology, architecture, psychology, spirituality, cultural studies, economics, politics, law. And in the midst of it, I think that's what we're doing here. And also, I want to remember that life, or Earth, is the great therapist. And there's a challenge somehow to let this great life speak to us and offer our response, because we too are nature, right? We too are nature. We too are the earth. So I feel like we're here to touch each other and be touched, and then to have things ripple out beyond. My work is as a psychologist. An ecopsychologist. Ecopsychology looks at the psychological dimensions of the rest of our relationship with the rest of nature and the ecological dimensions of human psychology for the mutual flourishing of us and the rest of nature. And I say the rest of nature because we are nature, indeed. But we've forgotten it, of course, too often. Maybe not folks here, but we all forget at times. I'm glad that Jason started us this morning with the Indigenous Prayer, and we're going to hear from Jason and Hannah after I speak, because the Indigenous peoples knew most of what ecopsychology is trying to aspire to. So I want to honor the people that came before. I think psychology can add a few things to the conversation. Finally, psychology is getting involved in the conversation. But the indigenous folks knew these things way before there was even such a thing as psychology. Psychology is a young discipline. And then the earth was here before the indigenous people. So that's where the wisdom is, really. Coming in this morning, well, I thought, folks from Pittsburgh, perhaps, if I say Pitt Panthers, you might think of, football team or a basketball team from the University of Pittsburgh. Or maybe your GPS took you on Panther Hollow Road to get here. But of course, there's a hollow over there that used to have panthers, actual panthers, right? And they were here way before us, and then we shooed them away or killed them, extirpated them. Need to learn how to use this. So, in a way, I was tempted just to show this slide and then sit down and be quiet. And have you contemplate it. The image is blurry because I snapped it quick with my cell phone, but the meaning is clear, isn't it? I mean, two toddlers from the neighborhood, drawn to each other in mutual fascination. Yeah, it's my little son, Eli. Not so little anymore, but talk about biophilia. Mutual biophilia, because the deer, the whitetail, is fascinated with Eli as well. I was tempted to say, well, let's just go outside. What can we do in 17 minutes? But I also remembered that there's a time other than clock time. And if we find a way to release into our actual experience, then we open into eternity outside of time, potentially. May sound a little ambitious, but I'm going to try, instead of to share information, I want to share some experiences that may foster a bit of transformation. That's the aspiration. For what it's worth, I do research, and I'm writing a book on ecopsychology. There's theoretical and empirical support for what I'm about to share, but I'm not going to cite studies today. I'm going to tell stories and try to sponsor some experience. Okay. In the presentation, in the slides, and say maybe in some of the things I share, I may use curious words like Buddha nature or God. I just want to say, I know religious language works really well for certain people and works really terribly for other people. But what I'm trying to share isn't Buddhist or Christian or Jewish or Muslim. It's a human experience. So if the religious language works for you, that's great. If it doesn't, translate it for yourself. So if you hear the word Buddha nature or God, you could say being or reality or the world or my favorite is life. Life, this great, mysterious life, right? So here's a famous Zen poem. 30 years I searched for a master swordsman, a swordsman that cuts through our habits and conventions and defenses, our habitual separate sense of self, cuts through. How many times the leaves fell, how many times branches burst into bud, but from the instant I saw the peach flowers blooming, now, no more doubts, just this. Thomas Merton, from his journals. Beauty of the sunlight falling on a vase of red and white carnations and green leaves on the altar of the novitiate chapel. He's in his monastery in Kentucky. He's been in this chapel surely thousands of times and seen flowers on the altar. But today he really saw. So the light and the shade of the red, especially the darkness in the fresh crinkled flower, and the light warm red around the darkness. The same color as blood, but not red as blood, utterly unlike blood. The same color as blood, but not blood. Not red as blood. Red as a carnation. And then I say in brackets, red as this particular carnation. Not a carnation in general. That carnation right there, that's the red. This flower, this light, this moment, this silence, God is eternity. Best because the flower is itself, the light is itself, the silence is itself. I am myself. Right? I think these two experiences are the same experience. Ling Yun in China 1,000 years ago, and Thomas Merton half a decade ago. Right? These are the same experience. Waking up to the depths of this life that we share, this life that we are. What if we could realize this, not just in single moments, but consistently? Encounter by encounter. Right? If you would, briefly, if you could stand up, briefly, and look around and get the feel of the room, what your perceptions are, what your body feels like. Just And then if you would, like, rub your hands together. Take some breaths, joining with Sonia's grounding, which is really, really sweet. If you could, like, tap yourself on the arm, tap yourself on the other arm. Keep breathing. It's always a good idea to breathe, right? Your chest, if you would. Your back. Give yourself a pat on the back. You deserve it, right? Then tap your forehead, please. Your face. Any pleasurable place in your body that I left out, you can feel free to feel that as well. Yeah. It's there. It's there. Now I would say look around. And notice the quality of your perception. How does your body feel? How does the room feel? How do other people appear to you? Right? And you can sit down, but you can keep checking it out. That was really brief, and I don't know if there was any significant shift, but when I've done this with other people, we don't have time for group conversation at this point, but people say, like, I feel more alive, or I feel this tingling, or the room looks brighter, right? I feel more connected to the people around me, right? And that can happen just by us getting in touch with our embodied being, our embodied selves, right? Because our bodies are nature as well. While also being thoroughly cultural, we're nature and culture at the same time, right? But we often live disconnected, dissociated from our bodies, as if elevated above our bodies. And it's the same dissociation that leaves us disconnected from nature, elevated above, as if elevated above, right? Shifting and healing this dissociation is the key challenge, I think, right? Because that dissociation is the fundamental delusion of humankind, as if we're small skin-bounded, ego-centered selves, as if we're small, bounded species, sovereign, self-sufficient. Okay? So I put some grapes on the table, and I thought we could do a little eating meditation. So if each of you would take a grape, and this is what we'll end with. If each of you could take a grape, and notice at first it's an ordinary grape. Hold it in your hand. You see it as a separate object in your hand, and then slowly, if you would eat it, start to eat it, and really taste it. I encourage you to enjoy the taste of the grape. We had a delicious lunch, but these are pretty tasty grapes, right? And as you're eating it, and then eventually swallowing it, and your body starts to metabolize it, realize the mystery of what's actually happening, right? That there was a grapevine rooted in the earth, and that grapevine drew up the minerals and the nutrients of the earth to form the vine and the branches and the leaves and the grape, drawing up the body of the earth. And when you are eating that grape right now and your body's metabolizing that grape, the body of the earth is becoming your body and your mind and your heart. And keep looking, right? Because that grapevine was nourished by the rains that fell and were absorbed and sent through the vine to the fruit. And the waters of the earth are becoming your body, your heart. And that's not all, of course. Right? Those leaves, the grape leaves, absorbed the radiance of the sun and transmuted the sunlight into that grape. So when you eat that grape, the sun, apparently far, far away, the sun is actually becoming your body, your heart, your mind. And someone tended that grape orchard, that vineyard, with care and love, we hope. And presuming that it was done with care and love, then that love is becoming your body and your mind and your heart. Right? So going outside and going into nature out here is so crucially essential. But nature's everywhere. It's an existential condition of who and what we are. We just have to wake up to it. And then out of that wakefulness, live with understanding and compassion and love and justice. Right? We have to actually join with what's always already happening. Most of us are privileged to eat every day. So every time we eat, in a certain way, the whole earth is coming together to sustain your existence and help you flourish. Right? So if we can remember that with each bite or with each breath or with each encounter, then we live differently. Right? Because it's not just the native peoples that were here before us or the earth that was here before us, but it's also every single encounter, some being or presence is here before us. Your beloved, a stranger on the street, a tree, a thunderstorm is here before us and is asking us something, addressing us. And it's our opportunity and our responsibility to hear the address, to hear the call, and find a way to respond. Thank you.